And we're delighted,
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Lucas, that you're here, and I want to welcome you to the next panel. Anything you brought in writing will, without objection, be entered in the record. And so I now recognize my good friend from Oklahoma. I got two good friends from Oklahoma. Yeah, I'm glad Florida doesn't play them.
Thank you for you, the ranking member, the opportunity to testify before the Rules Committee. For those of you perhaps who have not had an opportunity to work with me over the course of the last decade or so, on agricultural policy or export-import bank reauthorization, I have traditionally focused very hard on trying to do what's in the best interest of my constituents, but just as importantly, what's in the best interest of the nation as a whole. And that's what brings me here today. I was not a part of the negotiations that were ongoing that crafted this bill, either the effort of bipartisan bill or the resulting bill when that was not successful. You see, one of my colleagues from Tennessee and I, the last time export-import was about to expire or had expired, used a 1910 rule procedure, a discharge petition, to bring the bill to the floor in order to pass it so that we could continue to have this economic vehicle with which to drive U.S. sales around the world. For some reason, that inflamed certain of my friends on both the right and the left. It wasn't viewed very well by my own leadership or the opposing leadership. I take those two circumstances as a badge of honor, and the fact that we were successful with the help of virtually every member of the present majority who served at the time, and many of my friends in what is now the minority, is a testament to the fact that sometimes you have to think outside the box. And that's what brings me here this evening. It's become abundantly clear to me that the document which is passed out of the committee, with every possible effort that Chair Waters could put into it to craft a bill that would pass out of the committee, if it comes to the floor in its present form, I worry that while the bill could well pass across the floor of the United States House, what it will encounter in the other side of the building won't get us a reauthorized export-import bank. If anything, we'll wind up in a situation where, as the CR, which expires on November 21, has to be addressed the same day that export-import bank reauthorization expires, we'll wind up with a short-term continuation in the next appropriation bill. And that's not in the best interest of the folks who are trying to use export-import bank or the folks in American industry who create the things that are ultimately sold around the world. So that's why I'm here today. And if it would be all right, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to finish a general comment or two about the process and then speak to both amendments simultaneously, if that would be agreeable. Again, it's unfortunate that we've gotten to this point. I believe the ranking member of the Financial Services Committee and the chair of the Financial Services Committee have done their absolute best to reflect their conferences, to reflect their personal philosophical perspectives, to try and craft something, and that has not succeeded. So that's why I'm here today. I think we have to do something bold and dramatic to make sure this institution continues, and the Rules Committee is the place. I will have filed and asked for your consideration 2 amendments. The first one is referenced, I believe, as Lucas number 17. It simply extends the authorization of the Export-Import Bank for 10 years under its current structure. Now you say, why would you go that route? Well, number one, there's an indication from the White House that such a 10-year authorization in its current structure would actually be signed into law if it made it to the desk down there. That's a major consideration. Also, I offer Lucas number 18, which would extend the authorization of the Export-Import Bank for, again, 10 years, raises the aggregate loan and guarantee and insurance authority to $175 billion, and provides for a temporary board of directors during a quorum lapse. Again, if these 2 amendments are offered, I think you'd be quite surprised by the coalition that would come together on the floor. Now, these 2 amendments might offend my friends on the right, might offend my friends on the left, but we're here to represent the folks back home who go to work every morning. We're here to represent people who create the things that are sold into the world markets. It's in their best interest, I believe, that as in the past cases, we look past our wings and focus on what can be done. That number 18 is virtually the same language as has been filed under a bipartisan bill in the United States Senate. So either one of these amendments, I'm confident, if allowed to be considered on the floor, if adopted on the floor, if final passage occurs, would address for the next decade the reauthorization of this important institution. We can fight about the other issues as we fought for decades, but if we don't focus, we're going to wind up killing this institution, and that's killing jobs, and that's killing the pocketbooks of real people back home. That's the folks I care about. I may never be a star with my friends on either wing of the full. God bless you, Mr. Perlmutter. But the important part is taking care of those good folks. And with that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, if there would happen to be any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lucas. I now turn to Ms. Torres for any questions she may have. And Mr. Cole.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman, if these amendments were made in order, I'd certainly be supporting the bill with my friend. So hope the committee gives them favorable consideration.
Mr. Ranking Member, I think you'd be surprised the number of people, because in the number of hours that this has been public, the number of co-sponsors to meet the deadline required by this body, we have 17 on one of the amendments, 14 of the others, and that's coming from our side of the room where there's a hesitation to vote for anything that involves export-import. A strong statement, sir.
Mr. Perlmutter.
So, Mr. Lucas, you weren't involved with the conversations or the negotiations. I guess I'm asking you from our experience over the last few years on this particular subject of Export-Import Bank, neither of these amendments would fly. I mean, we've been operating on a very short time frame for these. We haven't had quorums. Why are you convinced that they would move forward and be signed by the White House?
Because I believe the last time we went through this torturous process using a discharge petition, we essentially extended the existing language, and it got an overwhelming vote in the United States House, passed quickly through the United States Senate. That First Amendment essentially reflects what the White House said yesterday and today they wanted. A clean 10-year extension, no changes of any kind. So if you like the present Export-Import Bank, this ties it down through this administration and maybe whatever the next administration is. Certainty back home. And the Second Amendment addresses the most grievous weaknesses, the ability of the other body to shut an institution of the federal government down by lack of effort. And it also addresses the world has changed in recent years. That larger number is necessary to keep the bank viable. And you were a wonderful supporter the last time we went through this process. Of course, sometimes it's easier to be an anarchist when you're in the majority, as I was then. Clarification.
I thank the gentleman for his testimony. I yield back.
Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's stunning to me that you can be the guy who files the discharge petition against your own leadership last cycle, and you don't even get a seat at the table to be involved in the discussions this cycle. I hear the conversations about partnership and bipartisanship, but I just don't know how you leave out a guy who's got that kind of passion.
My friend, sometimes their price is to be paid for principle, but I think the nature of this group, that's just fine.
But tell me this. I heard Mr. Stivers say that he did not consider these poison pill amendments, that he considered these to be good faith efforts to move the process forward, trying to win the support of my colleagues here, which candidly I have failed to do more often than I have succeeded in doing it. The question is, how does this move the chairwoman's product forward? If supporters of your amendment get their vote on these amendments and lose, you still support the bank. What comes next?
Then it becomes a challenge, because clearly in this language, I disappoint both the ranking member and the chair. But again, sometimes you have to make everybody mad if you're really going down the middle.
Well, I have found it to be true in our majority, Mr. Chairman, that sometimes folks just wanted a vote. And if you beat them fair and square, they could support your final product. But if they felt like they were getting jammed along the way, then they rejected a final product that they could have gotten around to yes on if they tried. I hope we will make the Lucas amendments in order and give folks who were with him in the last discharge petition a chance at a straight reauthorization. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Lesko? Mr. Morelli? Ms. Shalala?
You know, only in the House of Representatives would the status quo be described as bold. Mr. Lucas, would you explain to me what provides for a temporary board of directors in number 18 during a quorum lapse means?
It essentially sets up the mechanism. I do not have the text in front of me, and I'd be hesitant to quote it without reading the exact text to you on something of this nature. But we've gone through, in the last 10 years, periods of time when we have been without a functioning quorum. When someone in the other body chose to try and bring the institution to a stop, it was authorized at the time, but by strangling their ability to conduct a business. We try to overcome that. I call it my affection language for the other body.
Thank you very much.
All right, are there, Mr. Lucas, thank you for your testimony, and you're free.